Thank you, folks. Sorry to interrupt the music, but I figured a good time to bring up the director of the film, Eran Kolirin. Please welcome Eran. Thank you. Eran, thank you so much. Thank you, folks, for joining us and seeing this film. Eran, when was the last time you've seen this?
I don't remember. I mean, I usually don't sit in screenings like after I've seen the film a couple of times, but I got to see the ending sequence now, and I liked it.
Tell your friends. It opens this weekend at the Quad. So let me start by asking you. So this is based on the book by Said Kashua. And I feel in some ways, knowing your work a little bit, that this is a perfect match for your style. This absurd kind of reality. How did you get involved with filming this project?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, watching it now. That in some ways, I mean, Syed approached me with the producer of the film, Karen Michael, with the proposal to make this film, to adapt his second novel, and it wasn't the most obvious thing to happen, But I think that I needed to kind of step out of myself in some ways at the point where I was in my filmmaking career or something. And there was something so out of the ordinary in Syed proposing this to me in some ways. And on some other ways, I could completely understand it, because of the spirit of the film. And I could understand why he thought that I could, but on, in a lot of other angles, it was, impossible in some way to. But I think I needed to step out of myself to look at something, and maybe that was the same way for Syed, giving me the opportunity to do it was him kind of stepping out of himself for some reason. So this film is kind of our common ground.
And the film is 99%, I'd say, in Arabic, and is mostly told from an Arab perspective, from a Palestinian perspective. To note, this is a village that's a Palestinian-Israeli village, as opposed to Palestinians who live on the other side in the West Bank. And for you to be able to present that, and you say you had to step outside yourself a little bit, but what was that process like? How were you able to make yourself feel comfortable telling this story?
Well, it was like anything. It's a process that you start a kind of dialogue with the thing, and you have to somehow get it into your heart completely, to be able to put it out somehow, and it's kind of a process of dialogue, of understanding, and I know there's a lot of those questions, and it's not about me being. I speak Arabic and I read, but I don't. It's not about that, It's not about any this kind of understanding. It's a process of meeting, of just talking with yourself and with your imaginative other and with the thing. I think that's what I can really say about it. And I watched the last 15 minutes, and what I like about it, at the end of the day, it's like not about that. I mean, I didn't watch it now and thought like I was watching a certain ethnic, specifics of, I was just thinking of that's everlasting suffering of the human being somehow, and it's like all the time, everywhere, and I don't know, that's the way I see it.
And it's about families and friendship and love and
Yes,
Heartbreak.
about love. I think mainly, in some way, it's about love.
so let's talk a little bit. There's an amazing cast. They do a fabulous job. And tell us a little bit about the casting.
It was also a nice little process because the first I met Juna Suleiman, who casted the film. She was I can say, my first partner on this film, and I met her at a time that I had the script, but I didn't really like the script, and I was like, I don't know this movie, I can't get it. It's not working, and she said, yes, you're right, it's not working. And I said, why did you? We had this funny little meeting, but when we started talking about the script and going through the process of casting, and she had a lot of notes about the script, and I started to realize some stuff, and this movement started to happen, and the first guy, she said, you have to take Alex Bakri to play Sami. So I told her, no, who is he? I don't know him. She said, he was my ex-boyfriend. Believe me, that's the guy you need, he annoys me for the same reason. She had... and I met Alex, and he was great, and we started looking for his partner for Mira, and I've met a lot of actresses which were really great, but something wasn't, working until the end. So in the last day of casting, Juna said, I can do it better than all of them. So I said, well, okay, just sit next to Alex and let's see you act. And they acted, and their whole history was there, and it was all just. I could understand why they were together. I could understand why it could never really worked, and it was just so clear. And so then I had this couple, and then Juna brought her school teacher, the beautiful Isabel Ramadan, who plays the mother. She's not an actress. She has a PhD in education. She's a really bright, amazing lady, but she was so great. I loved her so much. She had this compassion in her eyes, this endless compassion, and when she hugs her son, so. I could speak on any of these actors. They came, and when I met Ihab Salame, for example, who plays Abed, the taxi driver. So he's a beautiful, beautiful person. I never could imagine. And he doesn't really walk a lot. They have this small theater up north, but I met a friend and like this beautiful shining soul. Really, like you could see it in the film. I think he's like
he steals the show a little bit.
Well, the show is there for stealing.
So the film, first of all, is probably, I'd say, in some ways you're dealing with your most overtly political. This is like, in some ways we're seeing the conflict there. We're seeing Palestinians and Israelis and checkpoints or whatever it is in this case, and usually you're a little bit more of one to tell a story in, I'd say, metaphors. I'm thinking about Beyond the Mountains and the Hills.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually talk about the politics.
I think this film is quite metaphorical also. I mean, you can't really take it as a social realism drama, or if you take it that way, then I don't think it would work for you. It's you have those pictures, and they kind of resonate with each other, and they create a certain feeling. When you say conflict, it's at least in my cinema, and the way I feel is like it's more about depicting the mental state of siege, of being besieged. Is the mental, how it kind of works in daily life, how it invades your soul, how this general mentality reflects in your own personal mentality, and I think that's what interests me. But it's not as if I sit to write and I think I'm gonna write a metaphor about some blah blah blah. I'm just trying to follow the characters where they go.
But it shows, yes, how I was hoping you would say that it's more than that. That it's because it's a community under siege, and seeing them, what that means, and especially I feel in our world now, post-pandemic, experiencing, and it's very interesting to see kind of that reflection of the of that experience there. And it was made pre-pandemic, I believe.
Yeah. It was made pre-pandemic. It's funny because the scene about the sanitizers, the cleaning sanitizers. So it was before COVID, and her character was not like developed. I felt that she needed her moment, and I spoke to the actress. And at some point, I'm thinking, maybe she starts to clean the house somehow. Because she has nothing else to do. And I think it's also like in Greek tragedies, once there's a disease in the village or something, people get obsessed. And you could see it in Corona also. Like in 2 days, we were all like spraying each other. So I thought maybe she should have this monologue about, cleaning products somehow. And then she told me, that in Palestinians, like cult or slang culture, this thing with the toll, with this specific brand, is like considered to be the best, the best. This is like, and so she invented. So I said, yes, it's brilliant. Let's have the toll for every single, part. So it came in. But then in the film, the scene kind of while we were editing was jumping in and out, because it's one of those scenes that are not necessarily necessity. They can be there, they cannot. But then once COVID came, it was obvious that this scene has to be there somewhere. So we found the place.
I'm going to ask one last question, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. I'm wondering now, just reflecting back now, since you've made the film, and the Israeli government is in a different place, I'll put it out there. Do you see the purpose of this film in any different way?
The purpose of the... I think it may come out in its time now, in maybe especially here, because I guess there's some understanding, and there's some curiosity, and there's some understanding that something is going wrong somewhere. I mean, it's like unhinged, and maybe this voice, that it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be this way. It's just I don't know, this kind of mad tornado of something, that's going on. But so maybe this calmness of this film, and I'm very proud of it. I'm looking at it. It's like a bubble of like some kind of understanding that exists, And so I hope maybe it's needed today. I don't want to sound like, I hope.
To me, it speaks quite profoundly. But let's take some questions here. I see 1 and 2.
We have a microphone.
Right here.
Thank you. Very much enjoyed the film. Has this been seen by Palestinian critics or audiences yet? And if so, what's their reaction been?
Yes. About critics, it got there were 3 critics. There was one by the Palestinian critic Samah Basul, which was good, and in Middle East Eye by Joseph Fahim, who is the most important Egyptian critic, and the critic was very positive. And there was one critic by Salim El-Beik, who is a very famous Palestinian living in France, which was also good a critic. What I found in those critics, I mean, if you would read them, it's not about, the film being good or bad. And even the fact that this film, has been reviewed in a positive light, which is, of course, everybody had like things to say here or that, but it was fair dealing and positive. And the positive, I mean, Middle East Eye was very good, and Samach and Albik were both good, but with some reservation. But still, if one knows how this discourse would even, go regularly, the fact that this has happened on any level was amazing for me. So it was, and of course we showed the film for mostly Palestinian. When we did, for example, screening in the village where we shot, it was beautiful screening for 200 people, like in the village. They hired the screen. It was very moving. And in Nazareth and in Haifa, we had. But when they ask me about the opinion of a certain crowd, and no crowd has like a face, one face. With Palestinian crowd, you'd find people who don't like it and like it, and with Jewish crowd, you'd find the same. So that's why I said at the end of the day, the thing is that was it seen, put in a certain dialogue, react. So yes, the answer is yes, and I feel very good about how it was accepted.
I hate microphones, but so I thought that there was going to be some huge uplifting ending, like in the band's visit, which I saw umpteen million times. And I thought, oh, this is so depressing. But when I think about it now, it's like these guys, Sammy, et cetera, they were into assimilation, right? And at the end, they found their authenticness as Arabs. This is how I see it. So, but I want to ask about the opening of the wall. What did that mean at the end? Are they moving into the West Bank? Are they opening up for the West Bankers? What is the meaning of that at the end?
Well, first of all, I cannot say a meaning. I can suggest things that were in my head, but anyone can interpret the film as he feels. For me, what's happening in the end is like there's this movement that starts, and it's like people have. A journey in a film is always about getting a new perspective about who you are. It's like you see yourself. The couple, they see each other. They have like a moment, and then this wall was always there in the more metaphoric way. There was just a wall. There is this specific wall that is being built now, but socially, in a lot of ways, this wall was always there. So there's this image of the wall with the open gate for me is like, and in the end of the day, I think like life for everyone, at the end of the day, is like you're basically closed, but maybe there's some way to find a redemption generally in life, and I think that's what they kind of face in the feeling. It's a kind of I'm here, and and that's my. At the book finished when the Palestinian Authority kind of coming through the gate, and they understand they have been transferred to the Palestinian Authority. I shot this ending, I edited in, and in some ways I felt and this is like very instinctive thing, is that when they stood in front of that gate, I felt like this Kafkaesque feeling of like you have your gate, and your gate is also within yourself, and there's always a gate. And I felt that the film kind of hit this point, which was very strong for me, and I didn't feel that I need to like go back to now specific political ideas. You know, I felt that it was kind of taking the film, narrowing its possibilities somehow. So that was the ending for me.
Just a moment, we got a question.
You know, the action about not going through the gate. It's funny. People are asking me this question, and you know, just anyone, be honest with yourself. If you've been in COVID, for example, like for a few months, you've been locked inside. You've been terrified of the world outside. It's the moment that they tell you it's over, you're out on the street dancing. No, you're kind of, first of all, sitting and thinking, what was this all about? Yes, and what is this life exactly? And then maybe you dip your toe and you feel, because that's how it actually happens, you know. So it's not about being like symbolical, you know, like we want the doves to fly, we want to know. It's like what is real, you know. If you're closing somebody for something, it's not out there dancing. It takes time, you know. So I'm thinking they are doing what is human to do.
I have a question up there.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, metaphors aside, this is a pretty honest depiction of the reality for Palestinians, and these sorts of lockdowns happen, and there's no explanation, and there are all the indignities that come with it. Sammy loses his job, and through no fault of his own, and so many other bad things happen as sort of collateral of the circumstances. And so given all that, I'm curious whether it was surprising for this film to become the official submission by the State of Israel to the Academy Awards, and what is that process, and who decides that, and was it surprising to you?
Yeah, again, it connects to the first question about crowds. Is as if I would say, that was, let's say, the Jewish selection for something. You would instinctively understand that in the term Jewish, there's like certain colors. It's true that with what's happening in Israel now, that's not the point of view of the great majority. It's not. But still, there is a proportion of people, most of them in the art community. There is a film academy, and I guess that if you take the standard political characteristic, or let's say they would be open people, there would be more. So it happened that this film was selected, and while it still criticizes very much the mainstream attitude, let's say, okay, but that's how it happened, and there is kind of living within a contradiction all the time, for people who do not think, in the lines of what is now. But that's the situation. It's living within this contradiction. So I understand this question, but I think it's natural. There are still places where that would be not a lot, but there are some. Luckily, in the Film Academy.
Thank you so much for this beautiful film. It's very moving and very nuanced. I was particularly interested in the intra-village jockeying for power, the so-called council which appears like a local mafia and seems to want to oppress yet an even more exploited group. And those are, if I understood, the Dawali are workers without Israeli work permits.
Without the Israeli citizenship, people from the West Bank who are basically under the military regime.
And so they're working within Israel proper, but in Arab villages, in Palestinian villages in Israel.
Yes, it's. I think one of the, for me, one of the most interesting points in Syed's book was, and very brave and interesting to depict this kind of vortex of sieges, like you have the Israeli besieging the Palestinian, and once a certain society is besieged, its instinct is to besiege another lower class, somehow. And you can again see it with even, I don't know, Corona in Israel. The minute Corona broke out in Israel, the mainstream Israel media was starting to blame the ultra-Orthodox. That's the way it went, very fast. It's not us, they are problematic, and so it's like so natural of societies, because when someone who's much more powerful than you takes away your possibility of resistance, then the violence is turned inside in some ways, and it creates other like ripples of class division and suppression. And that was Inside's book, which I think is very, very strong, very, very interesting. This kind of mirroring the besieged and the besieged and the sieger, how do you call it, are like two mirrors that mirrors each other continuously in some ways, and it's a very unique and strong point of view.
And it's interesting from the criticism perspective that it's not like, that the criticism, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, Israelis, Palestinians on one side. It shows how the imperfections of humans everywhere on all sides. We'll take one last question. I see a hand over here.
Thanks. Thank you for the film. It very moving and very beautiful. I have a simple question. At the end of the movie, Abed dies and the gate opens. Now, in my mind, the two events are obviously connected. And is that how Kashua proposes to resolve the conflict, by some cataclysmic event that shakes one side and makes it realize that what have we done? And they leave the gates open. And
in the no, I guess that's kind of how do you say parshanut. That interpretation maybe would fall more on the choices that I made in the film, in the order of things, and the as I said, Syed's book is finishing with the transfer of when the villagers discover that the village was transferred from one territory to the other as a part of like an agreement. I put more focus on the character of Abed, of let's say the saint that dies. You can take it in. I don't see it as a suggestion of saying that this is how. But yes, when I see life, at the end of the day, who dies? The poorest guy that just had to go to the street, because he had no choice. It's not even from ideology or anything. He goes, he dies, and and I think then it opens as indifferent as it came in some ways, you know, not because of this. It's like as because there's no connection actually really between him dying and it's open. It's like I think you feel more this kind of indifferent when it opens. I feel that in the film because it's, you know, they bury him, they go outside, and then suddenly it's like new morning, you know, new light, just it's finished. That's it.
I like your ending better. I mean, the same way that it, you know, they close them down for no reason. It opens for no reason, and it kind of plays into that absurd reality that everybody's a part of and everybody's a victim of.
Yes, there's never a reason actually. I mean, it's like there's like people. Yeah.
Eran, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, everyone.
Folks, spread the word. The film opens this weekend at the Quad Cinema.
Yeah, the film opens. Spread the word.
And Eran will be at the Quad all week with a retrospective, so join for that as well. More fabulous films. Thank you very much and have a good night. We'll see you hopefully at more events.